"Is this a joke?" asked the head security guard. His voice sounded mean. It cut through the hot afternoon air. He stood with his arms crossed over his chest. He was wearing a tight black shirt that said security in white letters on the pocket. The old man's name was Henry Clark. He was 74 years old. He sat quietly in a metal folding chair. He didn't look up right away. He kept looking at the empty stage 500 feet away. His hands rested gently on his knees. He wore a short-sleeved bright blue shirt. It was clean and ironed, but it was very old. The cloth was a little shiny. The collar was wide, like shirts from a long time ago that you can't buy anymore. It was the best shirt he had. "Excuse me, I'm talking to you," the security guard said loudly. He stepped closer. His name tag said, Red Thorn. He was a big man, maybe 30 years old. His head was shaved. He acted like he was very important, but wasn't really. "You can't sit here. This part is saved for VIP families and special guests. You need to move to the regular seats way behind the stadium." Henry finally turned his head. He moved slowly, not because he was weak, but because he had learned long ago to save his energy. His eyes were light gray, with deep wrinkles around them from years of being in the sun. "I have a ticket," Henry said quietly. His voice was rough but soft. He reached into the front pocket of his blue shirt and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. "My daughter sent it to me. Row 5, seat 12. This is seat 12. Red grabbed the envelope from Henry's hand really fast. He opened it and looked at the ticket inside. Then he laughed in a mean way. He didn't give it back. Instead, he tapped the ticket against his other hand. "Sir, I don't care what this piece of paper says. Look around you." Henry didn't look around. He didn't need to. He could feel the other parents staring at him. To his left was a man in an expensive three-piece suit looking at a gold watch. To his right, a woman in a fancy silk dress was looking away on purpose. She was holding her purse tight like Henry might steal it. The University of Virginia graduation was full of rich people in nice clothes, polite clapping, and families with lots of money. Henry, in his bright blue plastic-like shirt and tan work pants, looked out of place. He was like a drop of oil in a glass of clean water. "We have rules," Red said. His voice got louder to get the attention of a police officer nearby. "We have a 4-star Marine general speaking today. Security is tight, and honestly, you look like a homeless person who just wandered in off the street. I'm going to ask you one time to get up and walk away before I have to make a big scene." Henry took the ticket back. His grip was strong, which surprised Red. "I'm not moving," Henry said. He turned his face back toward the stage. "Sarah is graduating with top honors. I promised her I'd be in the front." Red's face got really red and angry. He waved to the police officer standing near the fence. The officer, a younger man who looked bored from the heat, fixed his belt and started walking over. People in the crowd started talking louder. They were whispering. They weren't whispering about how unfair this was. They were whispering about the ugly sight in the front row. "Let's go, buddy," the police officer said as he got there. He put his thumbs in his vest. "Mr. Thorne here runs this place. If he says you have to go, you have to go. Don't make us drag you out in front of all these nice people." Henry stayed still. The sun beat down on his arms, which were resting on the chair. His skin was thin and spotted with age marks. But under the surface, you could see the muscles of a man who had worked hard his whole life. On the inside of his right arm, showing because of the short sleeves of his blue shirt, was a tattoo. It was faded. The ink had spread under his skin over 50 years, turning a dull greenish-black color. It wasn't the normal Marine tattoo. It was a rough drawing of a scorpion with a cracked circle floating above its tail. Red laughed when he saw the ink. "Look at that bad tattoo work. You probably went to jail, didn't you? Is that why you think you can just walk in here? Did you steal this ticket?" "I earned this seat," Henry said. His voice stayed calm, but a muscle in his jaw moved. "You're causing a problem," Red said. He grabbed his radio. "I'm calling it in. We have an angry person in the VIP section refusing to leave, asking for backup to remove him." The air around Henry seemed to get thick. The talking of the crowd became a buzz of angry people. A woman 2 rows back leaned forward. "Please just leave," she hissed. "You're ruining this for everyone." Henry closed his eyes for a second. In the darkness behind his closed eyes, the polite talking of the university lawn went away. The hot air got worse, like you couldn't breathe. The smell of cut grass was replaced by the smell of blood and jungle plants rotting. He wasn't in a chair. He was crouched down in mud that came up to his waist. The quiet wasn't polite. It was the scary, heavy quiet of a dangerous animal waiting to attack. He looked down at his arm in this memory. The scorpion tattoo was fresh and new. The skin around it was red and angry. The ink was dark black against his young, dirty skin. A voice whispered in his ear, barely loud enough to hear over the sound of bugs. If we die quiet. If we live, we never speak. The memory snapped away. Henry opened his eyes. He was back in the folding chair. The blue shirt stuck to his back from sweat. Red was still there, standing over him with a mean, happy look on his face. Two more security guards were walking through the seated people toward them. This wasn't about safety. It was about how things looked. Henry knew he didn't fit the picture. He was the smudge on a clean lens. "Look at me when I'm talking to you, old man," Red snapped. He stepped really close to Henry's face. Across the aisle, about 10 seats down, a man in a wheelchair watched what was happening. He was younger than Henry, maybe in his late 40s. He wore a veteran's hat from the Gulf War. He had been watching with growing worry. He saw the way Henry sat, feet flat, back straight, hands still. It wasn't how a confused old person sits, it was how a guard sits. The man in the wheelchair looked hard at Henry's arm. He saw the faded scorpion. He had seen a lot of unit patches and tattoos in his time, but he had never seen that exact design. It looked tribal, almost unfinished. But then he noticed something else. Below the scorpion, almost impossible to see unless you were looking for it, were three small lines like tallies. The man in the wheelchair felt a cold shiver run down his back. He pulled his phone from his pocket. He didn't call 911. He called a number he hadn't used in years, a direct line to a friend who worked at the Pentagon archives. "Yeah, it's Miller," the man whispered into the phone, keeping his eyes on Henry. "I'm at the UVA graduation. There's a problem. No, listen to me. There's an old guy here. Bright blue shirt. He's got a tattoo. A scorpion with a broken circle. 3 tally marks. Yeah, I'll wait." Back in the aisle, Red's patience was gone. He waved to the police officer. "Grab him." The officer reached out. His hand closed around Henry's upper arm. "Do not touch me, son," Henry said. The volume didn't change, but the tone did. It dropped lower, sounding like a command that stopped the officer cold for a split second. "Get him out of here," Red yelled. He was playing to the crowd now, trying to look like he was doing his job well. The noise had grown loud enough that people on the faraway stage were starting to notice. A man adjusted his glasses, looking into the sun. But the most important thing was happening backstage. Inside the cool air-conditioned tent, save for the main speaker, General David Stone, United States Marine Corps, was walking back and forth. He was a man who looked carved from rock. His dress uniform was perfect. His chest had a heavy wall of ribbons and medals. He was practicing his speech about honor, sacrifice, and the future. A helper ran into the tent, holding a tablet. His face was pale. "General, sir." "Not now, Captain. I'm on in 10 minutes. "Sir, it's important. We just got a call from someone at the Pentagon." A tip came in from the crowd. Someone spotted a tattoo on a person in the front row who was being removed by security right now. General Stone stopped walking. He turned slowly. "A tattoo. People have tattoos. Captain, why are you stopping me?" The person who saw it said it was a scorpion with a cracked circle and 3 tally marks. The quiet in the tent was total. The general's face, usually hard to read, went blank. The color left his cheeks. He dropped the cards he was holding. They fell all over the floor. "Say that again," the general whispered. "A scorpion with a cracked circle. 3 tallies." General Stone didn't ask another question. He didn't grab his hat. He didn't check his uniform. He just turned and ran out of the tent. "Sir," the helper tried to follow. "Sir, the ceremony hasn't started." The general ignored him. He burst out of the tent into the bright sunlight. His shiny shoes slammed against the ground as he ran toward the VIP seating area. The distance was big, maybe 200 yards, but the general moved fast and strong. He scared the staff members he pushed past. Back in the seats, things had gotten physical. Red had grabbed Henry's other arm. The police officer was pulling on the right arm. They were trying to lift him out of the chair. Henry wasn't fighting back. but he wasn't helping them either. He had made himself heavy, like dead weight. His boots dragged on the grass. "Stop fighting us," Red shouted. He was sweating a lot. "You are under arrest for being somewhere you're not supposed to be and causing trouble." "I have a ticket," Henry said. The strain finally showed on his face as his shirt bunched up around his armpits. "Get his legs," Red ordered one of the new guards. They lifted Henry Clark into the air. His blue shirt rode up, showing the scar tissue on his stomach. Old jagged lines that looked like lightning strikes. The crowd gasped. Some people turned away in disgust. Others were filming with their phones. "Put me down," Henry said. His breathing was heavy. "We'll put you down in jail," Red said with a mean smile. That was when the ground seemed to shake. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the sound of General David Stone, a 4-star general, jumping over the fancy rope fence that separated the stage area from the seats. "Stop!" The general's voice boomed across the lawn like a cannon. It was a voice trained to be heard over bombs and helicopter noise. Red froze. The police officer froze. They turned to see the main speaker, the highest-ranking military person in the state, storming down the center walkway toward them. His face looked furious. "General!" Red stammered, dropping Henry's leg. Henry stumbled but stayed on his feet. "Sir, we're just handling a problem. This homeless guy was—" The general didn't slow down until he was inches from Red's face. "You hand him!" The command was so violent that Red jumped back, almost falling over his own feet. The police officer let go of Henry immediately. He stepped back and raised his hands like he was the one under arrest. General Stone didn't look at the security guards. He turned to look at Henry Clark. Henry stood there, smoothing down the front of his blue shirt. He took a breath and fixed his collar. He looked tired. He looked old. But when he looked up and met the general's eyes, he smiled a small, sad smile. "Hello, David," Henry said softly. The general was shaking. This giant of the military who commanded huge groups of soldiers was trembling. He looked at the blue shirt. He looked at the faded scorpion on the arm. He stared at Henry's face, taking away the wrinkles and gray hair in his mind. Seeing the young soldier who had carried him 3 miles through a rice field with a really bad chest wound, the general took a step back. He clicked his heels together. The sound was sharp, a crack that made the entire section go quiet. Slowly, crisply, General Stone raised his hand in a salute. It wasn't just a ceremony salute. It was a salute of total, terrifying respect. He held it. He didn't drop it. "Corporal Clark," the general said. His voice was thick with feelings. "At ease." "General," Henry replied quietly. Only then did the general drop his hand. He turned to Red. Red was pale. His mouth was opening and closing like a fish. "General, I didn't know. He didn't have ID. He looked—" "You," the general said. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "You put your hands on this man." "He refused to move, sir," Red squeaked. "Because he has a right to be here," the general roared, making Red flinch. "Do you have any idea who this is? Do you have any idea what ground you're standing on?" Red shook his head fast. "No, sir. This man is Henry Clark," the general said loudly, turning to talk to the shocked crowd and the police officers. "You don't know his name because he never wanted you to. You don't know his unit because it didn't officially exist." The general pointed a shaking finger at the scorpion tattoo. "That mark belongs to the Ghost Squad. Long-range scouting, 1968. They went into places where the map was blank. 12 men went in. 3 came out." The general placed a hand on his own chest, on the ribbons on his uniform. "I am alive today. My children are alive. My grandchildren were born. Because this man, this homeless guy, as you called him, carried me on his back while bullets were flying from an entire group of enemy soldiers. He took 3 bullets for me." The general reached out and gently touched the blue shirt right over Henry's ribs. He didn't wear his uniform because he couldn't afford to buy one. He didn't ask for a medal because he said the lives of his men were enough. "And you," the general turned back to Red, his eyes getting narrow, "you tried to throw him out of his daughter's graduation because he didn't match your dress rules." Red looked like he wanted to sink into the ground. I am so sorry, sir. I didn't—" "Get out of my sight," the general hissed. "If I see you in this stadium in the next 2 minutes, I will have the military police arrest you for hurting a decorated war hero on federal land. Go!" Red ran away, leaving his post, running toward the exit. The police officer, looking scared, said sorry over and over to Henry and backed away into the crowd. The quiet that followed was heavy. The people who had been whispering, the woman who had hissed at Henry, the man in the fancy suit, they were all looking at the floor. Shame was burning their faces. Henry looked at the general. "You didn't have to do that, David. I just wanted to see Sarah walk." The general smiled. Tears finally spilled down his cheeks. "You're going to see her walk, Henry, but not from here." The general turned to the crowd. He pointed to the empty seat next to Henry. "This seat is not good enough," the general said. He grabbed Henry's ticket from his hand and tore it in half. "Sir?" Henry asked, confused. "You're coming with me," the general said. "You're sitting on the stage next to me." "But my shirt," Henry said, looking down at the plastic-like cloth. "It is the finest shirt I have ever seen," the general said firmly. He offered Henry his arm. Henry stopped, then took it. As they began to walk toward the stage, slow clapping began. It started with the man in the wheelchair who had made the phone call. He stood up on his one good leg and clapped. Then the parents around him stood. Within seconds, the entire stadium, 10,000 people, stood up. The clapping grew into a roar. It wasn't polite golf claps. It was thunderous. Henry Clark, the man in the bright blue shirt, walked down the center aisle with a four-star general holding his arm. He kept his head down, feeling shy, but he walked tall. They reached the stage. The university president, seeing what was happening, quickly changed the seating. A chair was placed front and center right next to the speaking stand. The general helped Henry up the stairs. As Henry sat down looking out at the sea of graduates in their black caps and gowns, he looked through the crowd. He found her. Sarah was standing in the third row of graduates. She had her hands over her mouth. Tears were running down her face. She looked at the giant screen that was showing her father's face to the whole stadium. She saw the general standing next to him, refusing to sit until Henry was comfortable. The ceremony went on, but things had changed. When it was time for the general to speak, he didn't give his prepared speech about the future or world peace. He stood at the stand, gripped the sides, and looked at Henry. "I prepared a speech today about leadership," the general said into the microphone. "But I realized that the greatest example of leadership isn't on a piece of paper. He's sitting right there." The general told the story. He told them about the jungle. He told them about the rain, the sounds of fighting, the smell of burning chemicals. A young Henry screaming, dragging a body through the mud. The scorpion tattoo covered in dirt, the promise made in the dark. "You live, David. You have to live. I'm not leaving you." The general's voice cracked as he told about the rescue. "He disappeared after the war," the general said. "He went back to work in a factory. He raised a daughter by himself after his wife died. He never asked for money from the government. He never asked to be recognized. He is the perfect example of the quiet hero. And today we almost treated him like garbage because he didn't wear a suit." The general paused, looking out at the thousands of students. "If you learn nothing else from this university, learn this. Honor is not what you wear. It is not your title. It is what you do when no one is watching. It is what you do when the mud is rising and your friends are dying." He turned to Henry. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the newest person to receive the Navy Cross. Long overdue, Corporal Henry Clark." The crowd went crazy again. Sarah broke out of line. She ran up the stairs of the stage, ignoring the rules, ignoring the school leaders. She ran to her father and threw her arms around his neck. "Daddy," she cried, burying her face in his blue shirt. Henry held her tight. His rough hand stroked her hair. "I'm here, baby," he whispered. "I saw you." The general watched them, smiling. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He had carried it with him for 20 years, hoping for this day. He walked over and pinned the medal onto the blue shirt. It looked out of place on the plastic-like cloth, heavy and gold and shining. But at the same time, it looked like it had always belonged there. After the ceremony, the scene on the lawn was crazy. News reporters were everywhere. The university president was trying to shake Henry's hand, saying sorry over and over for the security mistake. Red was nowhere to be found. He had been fired by text message before he even got to his car. Henry, however, looked overwhelmed. He was leaning on the general's arm as they walked toward the party tent. "It's too much, David," Henry said. I just wanted to see her get her diploma. You got that and a little more. The general laughed. A young man walked up to them. He was wearing the cap and gown of a graduate. He looked nervous. Mr. Clark, he asked. Henry stopped. Yes, son? The boy pointed to the blue shirt. Can I shake your hand? My grandfather served in Vietnam. He never talked about it. But seeing you up there, it made me feel like I understood him a little better. Henry took the boy's hand. His grip was still strong. You tell your grandfather welcome home. You hear? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and purple, Henry sat at a round table with Sarah and the general. They were drinking iced tea. The Navy Cross was still pinned to his chest. The general leaned in. You know, Henry, the Marines are looking for teachers and helpers for the training school. We could use someone who knows how to survive the impossible. Henry chuckled, shaking his head. I'm retired, David. I've got a garden to take care of. And this one, he pointed to Sarah, she's going to law school. I've got to make sure she studies. Sarah laughed, holding her father's hand. I think I'll be okay, Dad. The general nodded, respecting the decision. Well, the offer is there. But for now, he raised his glass, to the Ghost Squad. Henry raised his plastic cup of tea. He looked at the general, then at his daughter, then down at the scorpion tattoo that had caused all the trouble. To the ones who didn't make it out, Henry said softly. They clinked glasses. The blue shirt was wrinkled. Henry was tired, but for the first time in 50 years, he didn't feel like a ghost. He felt seen. And as we leave them sitting in the twilight, the image of the quiet man in the cheap shirt sitting next to the four-star general stayed in everyone's mind. A reminder that the most valuable things in the world often don't look like much from the outside. If you enjoyed this story of hidden bravery and fairness, please hit the like button and follow our channel for more stories. Share this video to honor the heroes who walk among us in silence.